Hi everyone, Tia here, and I'm going to be talking about the game Oxygen Not Included, the thermal upgrade version. The game is developed by the company called Klei Entertainment, and it's currently in alpha build, so there's still a lot of bugs in the game, but currently as it is, I think it's a fun and fantastic game. So please do try it out if you can. It's available on Steam. And so for today, we're going to be talking about some quick tips and tricks that can help you survive the game. So I've seen a lot of posts and forums that there's some people that are having trouble surviving at least maybe even cycle 50 to 100. So I'm going to try my best to give you some quick guides on how you can mitigate this. All right, so let's get on right to it then. So tip number one, we're going to be talking about duplicants. So in this part, at the start of the game, you're going to be prompted to choose your first three characters. So do take note, this is the only time you're going to be able to shuffle your characters. So try your best to get the characters, the attributes that you would want them to have. Now, in my advice, I would prefer to have characters with very high learning because high learning allows your characters to learn the other attributes much faster than the usual. Now, I would require them to have at least +7 and up for each of the characters. But on the secondary attribute, I would want one of the characters to have at least a +5 creativity and up. Reason why I want +5 creativity is so that the character will be able to create very high level decorations like Mona Lisa's and the Thinking Man. So if you do have a high decor character, it will produce a lot of stress reduction for your characters. So that's a very big plus in the game, and you don't get to choose this moving forward. So when you get your fourth one, your fifth one, and so on during the game, so the game will not give you an option to reshuffle them. So you only have the choice: either you pick one of the three, or you reject all of them. So that's why take advantage of your starting characters, get the high learning ones, and get one creativity. Now, for the other stats, it's those are just nice to have. So if you have high number for those, then good. Then that's a big plus. Now, for the traits, I would recommend to look for diverse lungs for the positive trait and naturally robust. Now, reason why is that diverse lungs gives your character decrease in consumption of oxygen by 25, then it will also produce less carbon dioxide. And for naturally robust, it will make your character more resistant to sickness, which is very good, especially in the late game. Now, for the negative traits, the one that you should avoid is biohazard. So it will prevent your character. It will cause your character to be sick more often than usual. Then there are other attributes like you cannot dig or you cannot build. At early part of your game, I don't recommend getting those because you need to dig a lot and build a lot at the start and mid of the game. So I normally would not get them unless they really have a very nice stat in the attributes. So otherwise, the rest are just fine. So let's say, for example, you're getting anemic, so you get -5 athletics. But if you have a high learning curve, you can solve the -5 athletics eventually. So it's not really a big deal. For additional decor expectations, so the only real advice here is to get them as low as possible. The lower decor expectations produces less stress for the character, especially when they're moving around the map a lot. Now, for stress response, there are only two things. So it's either you get a vomiter or a destructive. Now, it's a better option to get a vomiter because a vomiter produces contaminated water, unlimited contaminated water, so you can convert that into clean water. So that's more or less a good stress response. But for destructive, they will destroy your generators, they will destroy your batteries, which is not good. Now, don't worry too much about this one if you're planning to have a character, or I mean, if you're planning to have a colony that has low stress, so you won't even worry about vomiting or even your characters becoming destructive. If you have the character with high creativity, you will have a lot of Mona Lisas in your base, so you won't have any problems about stress. But if you plan to make a stress colony, then I would advise get the vomiter so you can have a lot of contaminated water, free water. I mean, yeah. So that's it for the duplicates. So tip number two, you don't need to create microbe mushers for food. So you can rely most of the food either from all of the surrounding areas that have buried food in it. So you can have the buried muckroot, or you have the plants growing around the area. So you have millwood and some bristle blossom. You can get those for extra food. Then, if you see the cracks in the map, so these are containing items in them. So you can either get seeds from them, or you can get buried muckroots, or you can find some hatches in them. So the hatches are the creatures in the game that eats resources and produces coal. So you have the option to either keep them or you can harvest them for meat. So your initial source of food at the start of the game, maybe until cycle 10, and so you will actually rely on these sources of food. You don't need the microbe musher. Then you need to start planting your planter box in your base, so you can start harvesting your mealwood by as early as cycle maybe 15 or earlier. So you don't need to rely more anymore on food here in the area. So tip number three, make sure to assign jobs for your characters. So especially at the start of the game, as I've mentioned, I prefer to have a character with high art. So I would want that this specific character only to have the art job. So for the rest, I make sure it's unticked so that it's guaranteed that whenever I create canvases or stone statues, it's guaranteed that this character will be the one producing the art, which as you can see here, all she produces are the high masterpieces like the Mona Lisas and the Thinking Man. Now, for research, you can also choose which characters to do research for you. So for any type of task that you want them to do, so that the darker the red mark on the box means that the higher attribute level that they have for that. So do take note of that and take advantage of it. So tip number four, managing your stress. So the colony currently has 56% stress. So I'm having them build a lot of canvases and sculpting blocks so that my creative character will start creating the Mona Lisas and the Thinking Man. Now, there are two options for you to be able to manage stress. One is creating a lot of decorations, and the other one is creating the massage table. The massage table is actually very effective. Unfortunately, the problem with massage table is that they're um, manually used, so you need to tag each of the stressed characters to use the massage table, which can get a bit annoying when your colony becomes bigger. So let's say you have around 10 to 15 duplicants. It's very annoying to assign them one by one to get the stress down. So instead of doing that, I think I would recommend that this is a much better option. Make sure the decorations are set up correctly at your base, so almost your entire base should have decorations, especially in areas where they sleep or where they work. So that would help relieve a lot of stress. So in the next four cycles, I'll be showing you how the stress was managed just by decors alone. So you can see here at cycle 16, my stress is down to 21%. If we can see the decor overlay, so pretty much majority of the areas of the base is already in green. So where they work, where they research, where they sleep, so it's all green. So it's guaranteed that it's stress reduction. Now in the area here, I forgot that the millwood doesn't really contribute to decorations, so that's why it's still red down here. But in the area for the bristle blossoms, since they contribute a positive vibe in the decoration, so that's why it's full green. So in the long run, once you run out of millwoods, I'll replace them with bristle blossoms, so all of this area will be fully green. So that's it for managing stress. So you don't need to rely on massage tables. So you can just rely on decors and you're fine. The only time the stress will ever go up is, let's say, if you push your duplicants to the extremes in the higher areas and or in the lower areas. So the further they are from the base, of course, they will contribute more stress. But when they get back and sleep or do anything inside the vicinity of your main base, then they will relieve stress. All right, so for tip number five, we're going to be talking about managing oxygen and water. So initially for oxygen, when you're new to the game, you would tend to create a lot of algae deoxidizers. So you create one here, create one here, create one here, in order to have enough oxygen circulating in your base. Now, unfortunately, the problem with the oxidizers is that they consume a lot of algae. And if you put a lot of them in the base, tendency is early on in the game, you'll run out of algae uh, so fast that maybe in cycle 30 you're dead. No, that's just an exaggeration, but more or less you'll have problems with algae in the long run. So that's why I went to algae terrarium build. So I built a lot of algae terrarium instead of creating the oxidizers, because algae terrarium consumes only 30 algae. And that's very good because less algae, it produces oxygen, and it reduces carbon dioxide. So it's pretty good. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that the water consumption of these things um, are very big. That if I created a lot of them, it will eat all of my water reserves. And I had one game before that at around cycle 50 to 70, I was struggling to rummage for water. I was trying to filtrate water, but it wasn't enough. And I went to a point that I'm done. I couldn't produce enough water anymore. I didn't have enough oxygen, and the build was not sustainable. So that wasn't a good idea. Then I watched a video. I can't remember the name though, but I did watch a video. What he did is that he just created one or two deoxidizers. Then I realized, okay, maybe I can just create one deoxidizer. I created one and found out that it's more than enough to sustain you the entire game. I just put it in the middle of my base. I put it always near to where the duplicants live or sleep. So at least the oxygen circulates to their area, and that should be enough to sustain. And which is enough. As you can see in the game, I only have 3 terrariums and 1 deoxidizer, and it's enough to sustain the oxygen. Now, the good thing in this build is that it coincides with the water reserve, so you don't consume much water anymore. You don't even create food using the microbe musher, so you don't need water from that anymore. So there is practically no usage for water at the moment. The only thing that actually uses water are the electrolyzers, which is the one that generates oxygen, and the lavatories, the showers, and the air scrubbers. But the lavatories, scrubbers, and the air scrubbers and the showers actually recycles water, which is still okay. So the only thing that actually consumes water for me is the electrolyzer, but I'm producing more water than the electrolyzer at the moment. So I don't have any issue with water now, and even in oxygen. So I'm producing enough oxygen with one electrolyzer. I'm producing more than enough water for my electrolyzer. So currently, this is sustainable. You don't even need the terrariums anymore once you have the air scrubbers. And that's it. That's a properly managed oxygen and water for your game. Tip number 6. So know your gases. So there are actually 4 specific types of gases in the game. Five specific types of gases in the game. So currently there are hydrogen, which is the lightest gas, then contaminated oxygen, so polluted oxygen, that's the second one, the second lightest. Then the third lightest would be our oxygen, the breathable oxygen. Then the second to the last would be chlorine, as you can see here. Then the last would be carbon dioxide. So that would be more or less the sequence of gases when you encounter it in the game. So let's say, for example, chlorine gets into your base. So just make sure that you have enough oxygen that's being produced in order to push the chlorine down. So you can see that the chlorine is staying down here because I have enough oxygen here, and the carbon dioxide is below the chlorine. So that's how the gases work. The tip number 7, try to keep some pets around. So there are 3 creatures in the game. So currently there are puffs. So you can see here I have 3 puffs that are producing slime and converting contaminated oxygen to clean oxygen. Unfortunately, at the moment, I don't think they're creating enough clean oxygen because the place is too big. I didn't try to fix them. But as you can see, they're producing slime. So in essence, I have a slime production group here. Then we also have the hatches. So you can see my hatch here. He's hiding behind that. There we go. So what hatches does is that they eat resources and produce coal. So you can see I have 5,000 kilograms of coal that's produced by my hatch. So I normally keep a storage compactor here, and I would put the mineral that I have the most, which is normally the sandstone. So I keep that. I have around, I think, 3 of them. So they have 2 down here. I haven't given them any sources of food, but as you can see, there's a lot of coal already produced by them. Then the third creature would be the morbs. So I have, I think, around 4 or 5 morbs down here. So I have a chlorine production going down here, which is the bleach stones. So they're producing chlorine, and my morbs are producing the contaminated oxygen here. So at least they're cleaning out all of the chlorine in the area. So I have contaminated oxygen. Then later on, I can probably filter them to produce clean oxygen. So those are the 3 pets that you can keep in the game. So those are the 7 tips that would help you survive the first 100 cycles in the game. So if you do enjoy the content, please leave a like and leave a comment, and please subscribe to my channel. And if you didn't like, then please click the dislike button down there. And again, thank you for watching the video, and see you again next time. TR out.